Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now May 18th of 2023, and not only are we getting closer to the marketing of the Ahsoka Tano series to begin next month, that's really going to build up to the final trailer by this July. We have John, George, Dave, as well as Tony, as in Tony Gilroy, really beginning to shape things up with the Star Wars franchise, with Mando Season 4, Ahsoka Season 2 that's in the early stages, as well as a handful of other shows, by the way, that will be announced at D23 later this year in September. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and without further ado, let's get right into this. Now, we know that there's a lot of things going on right now between the Disney executives, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, the CEO of all things, and how they really are trying to turn things around for Star Wars. I mean, they genuinely want to bring it around at this point because they know that their jobs are on the line when it comes to a big IP, a big brand as Star Wars. They want to keep that to become a thriving and surviving Star Wars universe, basically, is their aim and is their goal. Now, that brings us to Kathleen Kennedy, alright? The one person who I believe is really just trying to sabotage things. I mean, hey, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like that she's doing all of this intentionally with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, with the recent things that Leslie Headland has been talking about the show, but let's dive into what Kathleen Kennedy had to say. Now, given that right now both Disney and Lucasfilm are beginning to make big changes to the Star Wars franchise, however, with Kathleen Kennedy still having problematic situations with both Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, she recently went on to promote those projects and didn't say the best things about the fan base by stating the following. I think the fans that are rushing to conclusions and judging shows before a trailer has even been released to the public is a great example of how hard it is to please the fandom, all because we had a vision to move away from George's. I think the fans need to remember that these are just movies and not to be taken too seriously. It may be art, but it does not affect everyone's day-to-day lives. Now, let me just stop right here for a second about what Kathleen Kennedy's saying, is that it is more than a movie, it is more than a franchise, at least in my eyes, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there will agree. Star Wars is like a thing of its own. I don't believe any other major franchises touches it as far as its uniqueness. You know, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Dune, all these major franchises that are quote-unquote, I guess you could call them fantasies, right? They don't really touch Star Wars because there's something so simplistic yet so involved with Star Wars that makes it something catered to any age, and just something that takes a lot of real-world mythology and mixture of real-world events from history that really just kind of makes it unique. And it's really hard to put a finger on it or put it into words, but there's this uniqueness to Star Wars that just works, that makes it so different than other franchises, and Kathleen Kennedy eventually brings something up here that I think is just insane. We're going to be talking about that in just a second, and I really do believe that she's losing her mind lately because she has a lot of pressure with proving the test screeners, of course, with the Indiana Jones 5 film. They're going to be doing more of that before its release, as well as, of course, really trying to prove things to the Disney executives. So, basically, past this, she goes on to elaborate, once we, as in myself, Leslie, and Mr. Watts, noticed that, we figured why not pursue a different philosophy of what Star Wars really is all about. And it's sickening that fans are already shutting us out before we have been providing any kind of footage or full resolution images to our audience. I think once fans sit down and watch these masterpieces, they will change their mind that it doesn't necessarily all need to focus on Lucas's style of Star Wars. I think Leslie put it best with The Acolyte being a combination of Frozen, Kill Bill, and The Matrix. It's why she wanted to get talented actress Carrie Ann Moss from The Matrix to play a significant role in the series. Now, before I get to the big thing here that Kathleen Kennedy talks about that really kind of leaves my head a little bit spinning here, is the fact that she believes that these big Star Wars installments, the movies, whatever, the shows have you, are just nothing more than a story to tell, that she wants to transform the philosophy, and you can't strip what Star Wars really is, and that's what Kathleen Kennedy wants to do. And she begins to talk about this in a second, and this is where I really begin to question myself. Is she intentionally sabotaging Star Wars, or is she really just out of touch with reality, where she doesn't know what she's doing and how much it's impacting the fandom? Take your pick. I think that it might very well not be the latter, but let's move on to the next thing here, because this is where things get a little bit crazy. So she goes on to say, I think it's very healthy to take the styles from other franchises and telling them in the form of stories for a Star Wars show. It gives it the chance to be different and be its own thing. I think with our shows, it's going to be, unfortunately, a turnoff for a lot of fans, but it will also bring in newcomers who will accept our vision. So again, Kathleen Kennedy is saying that her answer for making a good Star Wars story is literally taking the plots or the stories from other franchises and throwing them into Star Wars. That is not the answer. That means you're just stripping away the philosophy of Star Wars and you're bringing in other philosophies or other visions of other franchises into the Star Wars universe, and it's not going to feel like Star Wars anymore. It's like saying, let's drag in, big elements of Harry Potter into Star Wars and make that work. It's just not going to work. Sure, you can always do some visual similarities at most, but you can't throw in, the overall philosophy or the structure of those franchises into Star Wars, because it changes the game too much. So she concludes, we think this is the only way to unite the community, where everyone can get along on the creator's vision of Star Wars. So she believes that taking elements from other franchises, major franchises specifically, and putting it into Star Wars is the only way to unite the fandom. Not the answer. The only way to unite the fandom is to listen to the fans, be very much, responsible for what you're creating, listen carefully to the creators, kind of have an open mind of the writers and the directors and what they want to do if they're going by the fans, and just really fulfill what Star Wars really is. That's the biggest problem that Kathleen Kennedy has, is that she does not understand fully what Star Wars is and what it really means. I think that she just views this thing as a big brand with a big logo on it and a way to make money, and that's it. I don't believe that she knows Star Wars down to the core. Whenever she gets on stage at Star Wars Celebration and she talks all about the Jedi and the Sith and how the Jedi are in disarray, all these different things, she's, by the way, reading off a teleprompter. She doesn't know all this stuff. And that's the hard truth, guys, is that she's not really knowledgeable in Star Wars. She's always reading off a script or a teleprompter about what the next movie's about or what this project is about. So that's why I think everything is so disjointed with whatever Kathleen Kennedy is involved in. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to morning.